and welcome to the Nature Garden podcast with me, Carl Steinson, and the Weekending Show team from Lionheart Radio. Thanks for joining us on a canny wee wander down the garden path and country lane with the birds and the bees and the flowers and trees. On today's show, spring colours and sounds galore, Tom Pattinson's revelling in the spring bulbs and shrubs, and the exciting signs of new shoots in the flower borders and vegetable beds. Tom Cadwallander's taking a look at auks and the early return to the county of puffins, and celebrating the chirpy chiff-chaff. Steve Lowe is at one of our finest museums in search of an answer to the question, who is Eric? Plus some top tips for the garden from Tom P. All coming up on the Nature Garden podcast. Young leaves clothe early hedgerow trees, seeds and roots and stones of fruits, swollen with sap put forth their shoots. Curled-headed ferns sprout in the lane, birds sing and pair again. Christina Rossetti's celebration of new life after winter, and here's War Tom to start the new season in the garden.
Gosh, it's good to be back gardening. People are saying to me, how far are you advanced in your garden at the moment? Have you got much going? And the answer is, yeah, quite a lot. These extended day now, more daylight, increasing warmth, and things are really shot on. Spring colour all everywhere. We live on this quarter-acre site, surrounded by garden, of course. And there's fruit, vegetables and ornamental plants, so there's plenty to think about. We've cut the lawn 2 or 3 times already this year or this season, and the grass has grown so fast. Have a greenhouse as well, apart from fruit and veg, and currently surrounded by colour in the garden. Amazing. The bulbs, assorted spring bulbs, the daffodils, of course, the muscari, well, you name it, they're just colour all over the place. It's brilliant. And early herbaceous perennials coming up, the hellebore, the pulmonaria, lungwort, winter heathers there as well, of course, the ericacarnias. They've been flowering since December, and they keep on going. And it's the end of this month they'll start to fade. But what value for money they are. Ground covering and brilliant to look at, just superb. Flowering shrubs, we have them year round. I'm just looking around the garden from here, from a vantage point, and I can see that the golden forsythia, the 2 at the top end of the drive, really beautiful, and they've been flowering for 2 or 3 weeks now, and they're not fading yet, just super. And then, of course, there's the Darwin's barberry, Berberis darwinii, with the slightly orange-coloured flowers there, which will give way to, very soon, when it's finished flowering, to those purple fruits that the birds love. And because it's a species, this Berberis darwinii, it reproduces true to form, so the birds gobble the fruits from it and deposit the seeds hard seed coat with a little spot of manure, and it pops up all over the garden. So we have a lot of Berberis darwinii to dig up and pot up and pass on to friends. Apart from that, we have one of the viburnum shrubs. They're really good value. We have a viburnum botanentense dawn. That's the pink, highly fragrant one, flowering throughout the winter period. It's just finished flowering recently, and we'll be able to prune it. But the viburnum judii is just taking over now. Gorgeous, pale pink flowers, highly fragrant again, but much larger than the viburnum botanentense dawn. Superb. The ribes, common flowering currant. I can see it in the corner of the border there. The border stretches quite around in an arc, actually, towards the centre of the house. And Osmanthus burkwoodii, it's there as well. White, evergreen, little leaves, tiny leaves. And it's covered in these long stems of white flowers, and the fragrance, if you walk within 2 or 3 meters of it, it just catches the nostrils, and you think, my gosh, that's good, and you home in on it. Beautiful. But it's not just the shrubs that are flowering at the moment. The Victoria plum has just opened up, and it's covered. People to play down or don't mention a lot the fact that it's a very attractive shrub at this time of year. There's flowers, a mass of them, which suggests if it's self-pollinating, of course, it's self-fertile. But if the bees and other pollinating insects get onto the wing, not too much wind, then we'll have a bumper crop again. It was a reasonable crop last year. This happens every few years, but we expect a good one this year. It's looking very promising indeed. And of course, there's the pear tree next to it. It's just starting to flower, just a little bit behind, but it will be flowering shortly. There's assorted apples. We have a collection of about a dozen different apple varieties, and some of them the buds are just starting to swell on some of them. Excellent. So much to look at the moment. And when it comes to vegetables, we grow a lot of them, start them off indoors, but more of that shortly.
And the poetry continues now with Tom Cadwallander, whose attention is turning to auks and the early arrival of Atlantic puffins and the perils they've faced.
The sea, I must go down to the sea again. That wonderful poem by John Masefield kind of sums up a bit of my life, actually. I just love being by the seaside. It's fantastic. I've lived by the seaside and I've worked by the seaside all my life, and it's been absolutely amazing. I just live being by the sea, and it's because it's constantly changing. By the hour, by the minute, by the second, there's always something changing, that's happening, and I love change. It's wonderful. But yes, it's my life basically. I may have waxed lyrical in the past about this, and sorry if you've heard that before. But it's just the landscape, the seascape is fantastic. But it's the bird life as well. I'm fascinated by the birds that live by the sea and on the sea all year round. It's brilliant. But the sea is a terrible taskmaster, because no more better exemplified by the puffin wrecks that we saw in the first quarter of the new year. It's quite scary, really. Lots of puffins have come ashore dead or dying, and it's not just in Northumberland, it's actually right down through the coast of Britain and coast of France and Spain. And it's really quite odd. Puffins, when they leave their breeding grounds in the back of July, they head out into the North Atlantic to spend their winter. They're supremely adapted to live out in these quite harsh environments. So, yes, it's quite odd that they perished along our bit of coastline. And it's odd, actually, that they've come in now, because, there is a sequence of events for the 3 auks species that we have breeding in Northumberland. There's the Atlantic puffin, there's the guillemot, and then there's the razorbill. And usually the razorbills are in, then the guillemots are in, and the puffins tend to come in last. But they've actually come in first, which is really quite odd. And the reason why they come in early as well is because it's the early bird that gets the worm, or the nest site in this case, which it's quite interesting, that whole process. And it's odd that they've come in so January, February time. Normally it's kind of March time that we see them along our bit of shoreline. And the reason why they've been coming ashore dead and dying is they're emaciated. They've not been able to feed. The sea has been so rough, they've not been able to feed. So their organs shut down and they become emaciated and weak, and eventually they will die, which is really quite odd, quite a shame, and it's quite a sad thing completely. And there's been some quite big numbers, and it's scarily big numbers of Atlantic puffins coming ashore. And we'll not really know the full extent of the impact of those fatalities until we get through this breeding season. Now, just to put these things into some sort of context, the auk species, auk is spelt A-U-K, and the puffins, the guillemots and the razorbills, we're at the southern end of their range. UK is at the southern end of their range. They like to be in the Arctic. That's where the big numbers of these birds are. But we have significant numbers of them here. For example, guillemots, there's something like 40 to 60,000 pairs will actually breed on the Farne Islands, which is absolutely incredible. And there's another colony a little bit further north, just north of Berwick, where there's about 500 or 600 of them there. And Atlantic puffins, there is something like 40 to 60,000 again, spread between Coquet Island, the RSPB Reserve Coquet Island, and the National Trust Farne Islands. But we shouldn't forget there's another colony on the Isle of May, which is in the Firth of Forth, and that's quite a significant colony. That's a really and the birds will actually mix between the three colonies, which is quite interesting. So and razorbill, there's probably about sort of 400 to 600 of them, which are, again, in the context of the numbers of auks that we have, is quite small. But it's that sort of size population. And these birds are probably the most numerous breeding birds that we have in Northumberland. It's quite staggering, really. And it's in that context where you think about the numbers that have perished. We have to sort of weigh that up. It's kind of scary. But these birds are quite fascinating, all of them. They've all got their different facets. The puffins, they breed in burrows, and they've got their brightly coloured bills, and that's interestingly, they lose those bills. Well, the bills actually, they don't lose the bills. They lose some of the shields that are on the bills, which make up the colour. Those drop off, and they kind of become much smaller affairs during the winter time. And they'll grow those again for each new breeding season. And you can actually age them by the number of grooves on those bills. And if you look at the colours, the brightly coloured birds are the birds which are feeding very well, and the duller coloured ones are the birds which are kind of in poorer condition. And it's the same with the leg colour. There are orange legs, bright orange legs are birds in good condition. So yes, there's a lot of things going on there. And they'll raise one chick and they'll feed on sand eels. And they're just in the offshore waters now, and they're busy investigating their nesting sites. They'll not get onto the land until perhaps middle of April and get sorted out breeding. And they'll either excavate burrows or they'll use rabbit burrows to lay their egg, basically, because they only raise one chick. And they'll be gone by the time July comes around. Amazing, really. Such a short breeding season, such a short time on land. And then you think about the guillemot, and it's incredible. The guillemots, there's about 40,000 pairs of them on the Farne Islands, and they'll get themselves packed tightly and into kind of big gangs, and you see them. The population is so dense on top of these stacks on the Farne Islands, and they'll lay their eggs on bare rock. Bizarre. They're a kind of triangular shape, obviously a conal shape, and that is thought to stop them from the eggs from rolling off those cliffs, because they'll just roll around in a circle because of the shape, and they'll raise one chick as well. again, it's a fascinating biology of these birds, and they're only ashore for a short period. And then the other bird is the other auk that we have is the razorbill, and the razorbill has a similar sort of setup, but actually they will nest lower down the cliffs on the Farne Islands, and indeed on Coquet Island they're nesting on quite short cliffs, small cliffs, so they don't need the height of the guillemots. So it's all fascinating, and all of these three species, they'll feed on the same thing, on sand eels, and there's a patch of water just northeast of the Farne Islands called the Farne Deeps. And these birds all travel into that area to get the sand eels, and that's the staple diet. And they will kind of, it's almost like flying underwater. They'll fly under the water or in the water to catch their prey, and it's fascinating really to think that they're gathering up all of this food, and we're seeing change here. Climate change. I've mentioned earlier that these birds are the bulk of their population is in the north, and we're at the southern end of their range. And what we're seeing through climate change, and we're seeing just a gentle sort of rise in sea temperature, and that's going to affect their prey, the sand eels, because sand eel is a cold water species, and they like to be in cold water. And as soon as the temperature gets above a certain level, the sand eels will kind of move further north, will retreat to the north, and as a consequence we'll see puffins, guillemots and razorbills all doing the same. And we haven't seen the signs yet, but this is what we're predicting. So we could actually lose these birds as breeding species in Northumberland at some point in the next sort of 30 or 40 years, which is quite a shocker really. So it's something that we should be immensely proud of, that we have these fantastic birds, these tough birds breeding here. And it's amazing, actually, that they do breed here. And we should be immensely proud of it, as I've said. So, yes, if you get a chance this summer, take a boat trip. Boat trips to the Farne Islands go out from Sea Houses, and there's a couple of boat operators, and they're very, very good. There's Billy Shields and there's Serenity, both excellent. And if you want a shorter trip, go out to Coquet Island from Amble, and there's an excellent Puffin Cruises. They're excellent boatmen there. They will take you around and they'll give you the once-over about what's happening on the islands. And it's a great experience. The Galapagos of the North. Fantastic. And I hope you enjoyed when you do go. Take care, folks, and Gan Canny.
I'm Tom Heap from Countryfile, and you're listening to the Nature Garden podcast. New signs of life are springing up everywhere, and Tom P's busy in the garden tending the tetties and veg beds. Well, here's Tom to tell us more. Hello, Tom.
Hello again. Just to bring you up to date with vegetables in this garden, I do enjoy having them year-round, or a certain amount year-round. We're far from self-sufficient, but during the winter, I love to be able to pick purple sprouting broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbages, things from the garden. I know how they've been grown, safe to eat, and delicious, really, if you look after them. I like it to be organised as well, and access to them without making a mess, treading on the soil during a wet or snowy day during winter. So we are organised with 6 island beds, and those island beds are slightly raised. They're about 5 square metres area, each one of them, and they have flag pathways running in between them. So even when it's a wettest day, we don't have to tread on the soil. We walk around, and with 5 square centimetres surface area, it's fairly reasonable to be able to reach into the centre and harvest your vegetables. We planted the potatoes in a separate bed. That was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, actually. And early potatoes, first early and second early. Sutton's Foremost was the favourite for first early. And the second early is Charlotte, the salad potato, which is so tasty. They're both so tasty. But Charlotte comes up kidney-shaped, and it really is so good to look at as well as taste. And they take about 10 to 12 weeks growing time. And because they've been planted 2 or 3 weeks back, almost a month back, frankly, beginning of the first or second week in March, then because of that, and still a lot of cool weather around, we planted them with the tips of them, the tips of the shoots, because they were chitted. They've got shoots on 15, 16 centimetres below the surface. So they're not showing yet. I don't expect them to for another week or so. But when they do come up, they'll have spent their time quietly growing on, and we'll protect them by earthing up soil over the haulms, the growths, the stems that are coming up. That's the potatoes. On these island beds I mentioned, we have just established a couple of years ago an asparagus bed. The previous asparagus bed was about 20 years old, and it was running out of steam, not such succulent and large crops. So I decided this time, instead of buying crowns of the asparagus, to go for sowing seed. So I poured a packet of Conivus colossal. They germinated brilliantly in cell trays. They were planted out. And last year, the first year of growth for them, really, they were quite thin when they came up. That beautiful foliage, we enjoyed that. This year, I noticed they're just starting to break the surface, and they're almost pencil thick. So those spears are coming on very well indeed. We'll have a taste of them this year. That's the asparagus bed. We got early lettuce sown under a cloche outside in the garden. It was there in place for a couple of weeks or so to warm the spot, and the seeds will be germinated shortly, and radish alongside them, salad crops early. The other vegetables at the moment are in the greenhouse because we grow so many. Start them off in seed trays, start them off in the cell trays, and also in pots. Broad beans, runner beans, corn on the cob in pots, and have to grow them on for a few weeks yet because can't plant them out into the open garden until about the middle of May in this part of Northumberland. There's occasionally a late May frost. We've got perpetual spinach as well in pots, a whole range of them growing on in the greenhouse. It's an unheated greenhouse, so we have a little bit of toughening up on the way. They're raised early in a little bit of modest heat, and after germination, calmed down or cooled down a wee bit, and they're doing okay. Thank you very much. So that's in the greenhouse at the moment. Also at the greenhouse, we have tomatoes coming on. They're doing quite well. Young tomatoes. Got some fleece to drape over them at night when there's a cool night, but generally speaking, they're doing well. So too is the peach tree, which is just flowered, and I can see the first early peaches fruited appearing on them. And of course, the grapevines, the two grapevines, they've got the first tiny bunches of flowers coming, which will turn into bunches of grapes.
Keeping tabs on nature isn't easy, but thanks to a wonderful project in the Northeast, we can all play a part and help to protect our natural world. Steve Lowe's been visiting the Great North Museum in Newcastle to find out more.
Hello everyone, at the moment I'm sitting in the Great North Museum, Newcastle, or the Hancock as most of us like to call it, with a good friend here, Paul Stevens, who works for Eric Northeast. So Paul, first thing is, who's Eric?
So, well, I do occasionally get called Eric by people.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Yeah, but basically, Eric is the Environmental Records Information Centre for the northeast of England. We collate species habitat data for the whole of the northeast region, and it gets reused for decision making.
Okay, so that's like anything that anyone sees anywhere in the northeast. If they had a photograph of it or a record of it, they knew what it was, they could send it to you. Yeah, and it would be here for posterity. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, we kind of collate all of this information that people are sending in.
Yeah.
We manage it and put it in a database. So basically, people can access that at any point. So we'll get lots of requests from, say, for example, consultants working on planning applications, local government researchers, conservation organisations who might be writing management plans and the likes, so they can find out what's in the local area.
Yeah.
And inform their decisions.
So it's not just about what's here now. It's sometimes some of the records old. So actually it's about what we might have lost.
Yeah.
But also what we might be gaining, because I know that certain species are changing their distributions, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've worked with organisations like Natural History Society of Northumbria to produce things like atlases of particular species groups. So, say, for example, we've worked on like the orchids atlas of the northeast and bumblebees of the northeast. So basically, we can separate the data into more recent records and older records, so we can kind of see how, say, for example, the distribution of that species might have changed over time.
Yeah.
Whether it's kind of recorded in more areas or less areas, or even whether it's become extinct from the region.
So that is actually really quite an important resource, I think. And you've got how many millions of records now?
Oh, so we've got getting on for 5.2 million records in the database. And I mean, it's a phenomenal amount of information. I think that information is, for the most part, being collected by individuals who've been out in the field, identifying things and just recording what they've seen.
So there's loads of ways of doing that. What information do you actually need to be able to put it into the data set?
Yes, so there's only really 4 key pieces of information that we need for collating the species record, for example. So we need to know what you've seen, where it was seen. Also, we would ideally like to have something like a grid reference or some sort of spatial information.
Yeah, so where it was, basically,
who's seen it and when it was seen.
Great.
So yeah, and we do collect sort of additional information as well. Like, you might want to tell us if you've kind of heard something calling rather than like actually seeing the species, or you've seen signs of a particular species.
Yeah.
So we can kind of collect supplementary information, but there is 4 key pieces.
That's fantastic. So even a molehill, for instance, that tells you you've got a mole there. So and quite often we would walk past them, wouldn't we? And we'd never even record them. But the reasons why I think it's really important, because I chair Eric. Just to say that I've been chair of Eric for a while, is because I really think data is important. So if you've got a planning application coming up, it's no point in telling us right then that there's something valuable there, because that process is already in train, isn't it? So we're getting it down beforehand is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important to record what you see when you're out and about as much as you can, because you kind of never know when that information is going to become useful.
Absolutely.
And like, say, if kind of records are sitting in notebooks and the like, we can't use that information until it's been given to us and we've processed it,
Yeah.
And there's sort of plenty of examples that I can use where people have kind of come to us after a planning application has gone through or is in the process, and haven't shared the data, like for a particular site where there's been a particularly important species, or it's using a particularly important habitat on the site.
Yeah, that's really good, and it's real citizen science. It's really about the individual, isn't it? And also it's fun to learn stuff.
Yeah,
and there's loads of new ways of doing that now. So
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, there's lots of sort of tools out there to kind of help you to record the species. So the 2 sort of key tools that we kind of recommend, if you're kind of new to biological recording species, iNaturalist is a great sort of app and platform that you can use, and you can kind of see what other people have been submitting, and you can also get feedback from the community online who will help you identify things. So you don't need to know exactly what it is that you're seeing. If you're kind of a little bit more familiar, would encourage the use of, say, for example, iRecord, which is a sort of a more sort of national platform, whereas iNaturalist tends to be international. That one kind of gives you direct contact with expert verifiers and the likes when they're verifying the records, that kind of ask questions of you to kind of help identify the species or to verify the record. or even give you feedback on what exactly you might have spotted,
That's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm always an advocate of books as well, Mike, I've got to say, because there's loads of guidebooks that you can get, too many in some respects, but second-hand shops have quite a lot of them, so that's pretty good. And then finally, Paul, and that's been brilliant, thank you very much for that. You can send records direct to Eric from the website, is that right?
Yeah, so we do have an online recording portal where you can submit your records. So you can just go on and sign up for an account and enter your records on that site. And also we'll kind of have, if you're a more sort of regular recorder and want to record on, say, for example, a spreadsheet, we'll have a spreadsheet that you can download on the website as well, and you can put your records into that as well.
So basically, if you had all you're seeing is birds in your garden, you could record that same site all the time. Just put the date, your recording name, the species, and that becomes data that's valuable to us all, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. Brilliant.
Thank you.
And now for some wonderful springtime sounds with Tom Cadwallander.
I don't know if you can hear that, but that is chiff-chaff. Chiff-chaff is a small, kind of greeny bird. It's a warbler. It's related to the willow warbler. And it's a summer visitor to our part of the world. Winters in North Africa and around the Mediterranean. And usually they're the first of the summer visitors back in. But it's a tiny little bird. Chiff-chaff, chiff-chaff. Onomatopoeic, of course. And they're brilliant little birds. But these are the first ones back in. And currently they seem to be occupying every little bit of scrap of woodland that you can imagine. They're everywhere. And it's just, for me, it's just the sound of spring. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it. And these birds are so small, they're only about 4 inches long. They weigh about sort of 15 grams, or perhaps a little bit less. But they'll migrate huge distances. And they're so really indicative of kind of springtime. And I just love them. And that's why I kind of like this time of year, really, because whilst it's springtime, it's supposed to be the renewal, but the resident birds are really getting stuck in and doing their breeding thing, and we have these summer visitors. They're calling now. It's making its call to attract a mate, to set up a territory, and really to show off, I'm here. And it's the males will do all the singing, and he's looking for a female, basically. So they'll start their nesting very, very shortly. Oh, and it's just popped out. It's a tiny little thing, and it's a little greeny warbler with a tiny eye stripe, insectivorous, or just dropping out. It's forward fly catching. It's absolutely wonderful. So yes, the early spring time is just a great opportunity to get your ear attuned to the coming summer visitors. These birds which have wintered in Africa, and they're coming back to this part of the world to breed, and it's just a lovely time of year and a lovely song. It just fills me full of kind of buzz. I think it's fantastic. Great. Now do go out to the woods today. I'm sure you're in for a surprise when you hear chiff-chaffs.
And to the sound of War Blackbird, here's Tom with some things to be getting on with in the garden.
Well, it's jobs for the week time, and I'm quite sure that by now probably you've made the first cut of the lawn. If not, I agree, it was not good weather over Easter weekend when people generally start cutting the lawn. Mine's been cut a few times already, so go at it carefully, but before you start any cutting, walk around it, walk over it. If you haven't been onto the lawn for some time, there might be some debris lying there. I'm thinking of twigs or stones perhaps, anything of that nature that might foul up the cutting cylinder or the cutting blades of your lawnmower. It's wise to check first. And then cut it with high blades, set high first time around, and then second time bring them down a bit closer to the ground itself, but not too low a cut at this time of year. Work gradually towards about the end of June, say, being on your summer cut level. Start off quietly. Lawn, if you haven't got one, and you would love one, or you've got a piece of land that's crying out to be covering with beautiful green area of grass, then there's two choices, and this is not a bad time to be doing it. You either sow seed or you lay turfs. I laid some turfs, about 5 square metres of them, just recently to extend an area of lawn at the front of the house. I bought them locally, got them into the back of the car, a bit concerned about how much weight they'd be, because they come in rolls, in square metre rolls, and the chap I bought them for, the farmer, said the general rule is 5 square metres of turf is the equivalent of 2 people in your back seat. So, of course, that was straightforward. I had my 5 square metres of turf and drove carefully, and the car was undamaged, and the wood undamaged. So, I planted them instant, transformed that piece of land overnight. If you sow seed, it's much cheaper, of course. The turf, by the way, was just under £5 a square metre. But if you sow seed, much cheaper for a small box of seed, but it takes a while to germinate, develop, thicken up. That's the slow process. I go for the instant transformation. Fulfill your dreams by having a little grassed area, which will keep you cheerful all the time. Better than looking at a rough area of land. I'm looking round at the flowering shrubs in the garden at the moment, and outstanding amongst them is forsythia. There's beautiful golden flowers. Now, it has to be pruned sometime, so the idea is as soon as it's finished flowering, that's when you prune. What happens after pruning is it responds by growing new stems. They mature during this summer, and they produce the flowers next year. And that's not a bad general rule to follow. If you're not sure about how to prune a shrub you have, a flowering shrub, wait until it's finished flowering and prune it then. Okay? I'm looking at the salad crops in the garden. I've started off some leaf lettuce under cover. They'll be germinating soon. I've also got some sown earlier in cell trays, and they're growing on in the greenhouse border, unheated greenhouse. They're in the border, and they're doing well, actually. So I've got 2 areas there. But before I sowed them outdoors, the soil is still a bit cool. The temperature's not high. Not that lettuce demand a high temperature lettuce seed to germinate. They'll germinate at a fairly low temperature. However, I put the cloche over the area I'm going to sow them first to warm up the soil a bit, then sown them. And of course the other salad crop is the French breakfast radish. Beautiful. Those long French breakfast, beautiful to taste. I don't grow the hearting lettuce. I also grow the leaf lettuce, cut and come again basis, because you cut as much as you wish, and it keeps on producing more leaves. The hearting type take about up to 90 days to heart, and then they're gone within a week. So that's something to try. Other seeds, parsnip, beetroot, peas, broad beans, they're all sown indoors in the greenhouse, in pots and in cell trays, so they produce plugs around the base of the root, and they're potted on, and they hit the ground running when I plant them out later, at the end of we're near the end of May, actually, mid to the end of May. It's too early to plant out things like sweet corn at the moment, all runner beans, courgettes, that sort of thing. Now, best advice, I think, for the coming week is relax a little. Take time out to enjoy some of the flowering plants in your own garden and look around your seedlings, that sort of thing. Get out into the outdoors and visit a garden which has other plants on display. Get some ideas there. Take a break. Gardening is supposed to be an enjoyable pastime. Whatever you're doing next week, enjoy your gardening.
You've been listening to gardener Tom Pattinson, birder Tom Cadwallander from the British Trust for Ornithology, and Steve Lowe from the Cresswell Peel Tower. Don't forget you can listen back to all of our previous programmes via the Nature Garden podcast. That's the Nature Garden podcast. I'm Carl Steinson, thanks for listening, and enjoy your gardening and time outdoors with nature. Bye for now.